Hey everybody. I just wanted to make a quick video tonight about something that was on my mind about getting sober, and kind of like a message to reiterate to myself, but also to anybody that's like new to sobriety or coming into sobriety for the first time. Um, Something to kind of be aware of. From my experience, it was it was strange turning to the literature and the voices that are really popular within like the recovery community, because oftentimes I felt like when I was new to my recovery and like looking for voices of former addicts in TED Talks and books and like podcasts and just everything I could get my hands on of people that have come before me and like succeeded in this monumental task of learning how to live with yourself, without the desire to escape yourself constantly. That's no small feat. So, when I was new to recovery, the voices that like I found didn't really like resonate with me at all. And it's like so many of them just felt like off. I have to say Russell Brand is someone that really did not disappoint me. He really went there in a way that to a really dark place, like with full blown like IV addiction and crack smoking and everything, like the whole nine. And that's where I went to. I didn't like dabble or have like a dark period. My life was dark for decades. And so I really wanted somebody who understood what it was like. And it's all relative. People that you can ruin your life just by snorting a bunch of cocaine or shoving pills up your nose. You don't have to be like smoking crack or smoking meth or a full-blown like IV addict to have your life ruined. But when you did take it that far, it feels really good to be like, okay, that you can go that far down that road and like still come out on the other side. And I want to be that voice for someone too in the future. That's one of my goals. But it was just like a PSA for people that are new to recovery. I found it disheartening at first. Um, a lot of There were like two or a few names in recovery where it's like they just hadn't really gone that far, and then they were like, oh well, I've done it all. And it's like, have you really, have you really done it all? Like, if you, from my experience, if you were able to be externally from the outside looking in a functional addict, of course there's no such thing as a functional addict from the inside out. If your life is ruled by addiction and your drug of choice and just like all the chaos of that lifestyle, if your life is ruled by addiction, there's no such thing, it in your soul as the addict, that you are not functional. But if you can externally keep up appearances and like have a kick-ass job in this kick-ass city and keep an apartment, if you have externally that level of like functionality, I couldn't relate to that, at all. I couldn't keep a job at Walmart. I couldn't keep a job anywhere. I couldn't keep a place anywhere. There was nothing at the end, when all was said and done, there was nothing about me that was functional, and it was like obvious from a mile away. So, and something that doesn't get talked about a lot, just in general within the entire matrix, something that doesn't get talked about is money, and that's not by that's by design. Finances aren't talked about because finances are a big factor. How you get handled with the law, your options, like, are you going to be looked at if you are a well-to-do, upper middle class or rich addict, for example? You are often looked at as someone with a problem. You get that extra compassion if you are from a well-to-do family, if you are a functional addict from the external, if you have a job that you are able to maintain, an apartment, in a cool city. you know, if you have it like that, and at the end of your addiction, when you get sober, you haven't lost it all. You have on the inside, you're internally morally bankrupt when, you know, you hit that rock bottom and you're ready to like start your life over. But just externally, you know, if you have the means to keep up a certain level of appearances, and or if you are from a family, you know, and you have that kind of certain tax bracket, you're looked at with more compassion. And when you get in trouble with the law, you know, you're not going to necessarily end up getting in trouble with the law. You're going to get a slap on the wrist. You're going to go to rehab. You know, you're not going to be doing time in county and coming out with a felony on the other side necessarily. And a lot of times within the matrix, they don't talk about finances, and they just make it about everything else. That's where, like, you know, a lot of the, what's it called? I don't know what it's called, but like race and sex and this and that. From my experience personally, and that's all I can speak of, and really that's all anybody can speak about, is their own experience, right? I mean, we can all look at statistics. Stats don't lie, but statisticians can, right? People can. We can look at statistics, but really we're all just going by anecdotal evidence. And from my experience, what I've seen is, you know, if you have the money, and if you are from a family that has the money to get you out of trouble, it really doesn't matter what color your skin is or what like genitalia you have. You know, money talks at the end of the day. And so when I was looking to like voices in recovery, I was like, man, you know, these people aren't drug felons. They haven't had like all these legal woes. They were able to maintain a certain image, like from the outside, like a level of fitting into society, even though their, you know, life was in shambles internally due to their addiction. And it was very disheartening to look and to try to find like some hope and encouragement, and just be like, damn, I'm more fucked up than absolutely everybody that is like a name in recovery. That is very disheartening. It was for me. So if anybody else, like just a little warning, like maybe you did go further than a lot of like the names you're going to read. But for me, I have been able to extract some of my biggest sources of motivation from people that didn't actually, that their work didn't necessarily resonate with me immediately. And it's like I have two sources of inspiration in my life, like traditional inspiration, my absolute like muses and people I look up to, and just their work immediately like struck that soul chord, you know. And when you hear a song or a painting or read someone's writing and it just like speaks to your soul immediately, that type of connection, I mean, you know that and you feel it immediately, and it's like, yeah, they get me on like a soul level. And it doesn't have to be my experience, and I've never read or seen anyone that's had exactly my experience, and that's probably the case for all of us, but it's the feelings and emotions that come with it. But oh, my daughter just walked in. Oh, hey, baby. All right, I might have to cut this short, but I just wanted to say, like, if anybody's having, if you're new to recovery, don't be discouraged by if their story is not like your story exactly, because reverse inspiration, which is the non-traditional sources of inspiration, people that like their primary work wasn't for me and didn't really speak to me, but I have found some of my greatest sources of inspiration from like, you know, non-traditional avenues. And reverse inspiration can be every bit as motivating. For example, like what was her name? She's really big in the recovery community, and she's like one of those, like, you know, Oprah's book club types. I don't know, baby. She's one of those Oprah's book club types, and she's really big into law of attraction. So like on the surface, it's like she should be on paper someone that I would really like resonate with. But then when I actually started like looking into her, it's like she had God, I like literally can't remember her name, but she like was able to like be a quote unquote functional addict and keep this amazing job. That's a pillow. Keep this amazing job and, and just keep this amazing life on the outside and, have all these means. And I don't know. It just wasn't, it just seemed, it just wasn't for me. And she's big into law of attraction, and she's one of my greatest sources of non-traditional or reverse inspiration. And someone who didn't resonate with me, who on paper should have, but when I actually started like listening to her work, it just wasn't for me. But something she said that I found really motivating in the reverse way. And what I mean is, like, she said, oh, with manifestation, if you're not, to paraphrase, she said something like, with manifestation, if you don't have instant results, something's not right. You're doing something wrong. And I was like, holy shit. Once again, totally, I'm not really feeling it. If you are looking, the way I take it is as someone who has like a laundry list of mental health issues and a laundry list of like past traumas and just this life of total chaos and, wallowing in the trenches of addiction, to say, when I look to law of attraction and people in recovery, that sets kind of an unrealistically, absolutely unrelatably high bar to say, oh, if you're not manifesting instantly, you're doing something wrong. I mean, if you have instant manifestation, even some of the time, then you probably don't need self-help to begin with, because it seems like you really are kicking ass and taking names in the game of life. And that ain't me, or at least it sure as hell wasn't a few years ago. But I have found, like, man, okay, I've taken something that kind of got under my skin and didn't resonate with me, and I've turned it into, once again, like one of my biggest sources of reverse inspiration. And so I'm like, okay, that didn't resonate with me, but something that really did, as a result of that, that interview where she said, if you're not manifesting and getting instant results, you're doing something wrong. As a result of that interview, I looked up, I started going down like a YouTube law of attraction rabbit hole, and I found out about the law of assumption, which is basically just like it says. And I found it works so much better just to kind of cut out some of the rumination and kind of the way you can put up with law of attraction. Look at you. With law of attraction, you can kind of put up like getting your own way, because it's like, oh God, I had a negative thought, I'm going to have like this negative thing. It's easy if you're prone to rumination. Okay, baby, I'm almost done. If you're prone to rumination, then I'm going to get off. Obviously my daughter's in here, but if you're prone to rumination at all, which I am, law of attraction can kind of be something that, I can get stuck thinking, oh God, I thought a negative thought, the whole thing's screwed. That type of like, I don't know, whatever. I can kind of spiral easily. And with the law of assumption, it's a way for me to kind of get out of my own head and focus on assuming that everything will work out, as it always does anyway. So as a result of me not feeling her comment and it really getting under my skin, it just so happened, as the universe always does, that it led me to something that resonates so deeply with me. So that's just kind of what I wanted to say. Maybe I'll touch on it more sometime when my daughter's, it's time for bed anyway, not in the room with me. But, if the voices, if like the traditional names in recovery or the stories in recovery, if you're like, God, I'm too fucked up for the recovery community, that's kind of how I felt. There's always, if you're not feeling it, like reverse inspiration is something that has really just worked for me. I've always found like something that hits the nail on the head for me in my life and really just touches that soul nerve, from people that don't, or content that doesn't resonate with me. So, don't give up. And Russell Brand is awesome in terms of recovery. Like personally, I thought that was great, but y'all have a good night.